I forgot to unmute myself. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my live stream. I'm sick, and I was like, oh, I should go live because I can still talk to you guys. I can't go anywhere or do anything really, but I can talk, and we all know I'm really, really good at yapping, so I might as well just hop on here and yap at y'all. So I figured we'd do a Q&A since we haven't done one of those in... Well, you know what? Actually, Amanda and I did do a dating Q&A, but it was only on Instagram because my streaming platforms, for some reason, were just not having a good time. So that was really frustrating. But besides that, I think, this is going to be a good one. I went on to my Instagram to have a couple people, to pick a couple questions first. Mainly because usually when I do these Q&As, I like to start off with a couple questions. People usually need a little bit of, introduction into a live stream Q&A before they feel comfortable enough to ask their own questions. And I will be going between my Instagram and my other platforms. So bear with me because it's always going to just be a little bit, a little bit jank because these are not really planned. So I don't have like a strict plan for these types of live streams. They're a little bit all over the place. And, that's the way that things are going to be. So I have Instagram in front of me. I have you guys, the rest of you guys to my right. Yes, I am still one of those people. And I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. It wasn't that bad originally. I had like my own little, concoction going on with like honey and garlic and onions and whatnot. And that really helped keep it at bay. Oregano oil, vitamin D, etc. But then I put myself into a stressful situation type of thing, not like actually stressful, but just stressful as in like working out, immune system type of thing. And apparently that just did me in, and I have been out of it for the last couple days. It wasn't as bad to begin with, but the last this week has just been, it just took me out. I'm feeling a little bit better today, which is good, but still not good enough to go back to the gym or go hang out with friends or party, etc. So that's fun. Anyways, before we get started really quick, I first wanted to say that the limited edition Christ's Tears chaplets are officially on my website. If you guys would like to help support this ministry, we do really, really appreciate any and all donations to help keep this ministry running, especially financially because things are very difficult. But these, I paired up with Sarah from Stella, Stella Maris. I'll link it below. This is what happens when I'm sick, but she is amazing. She handmade all of these. They're very limited. We didn't have enough, last time, and I wanted to throw in a couple extra this time here. I don't think it's going to focus on it because despite the fact it's on autofocus, it just doesn't do that. But the beads are meant to represent the Christ's crucifixion, basically. The chaplet of Christ's tears. These beads are meant to signify, especially with the white ones and stuff, the tears that he shed while on the cross. The black ones are to symbolize the peril and the difficulty of carrying the cross. And then it's really just a beautiful chaplet. It's very, I don't know how to explain it, but it's one of my favorites just because of the symbolism that I have kind of woven into it myself, and just the fact that Sarah did such a beautiful job making these. So you guys should definitely check her out, Stella Maris shop. She is phenomenal on Instagram. But yeah, and so those are available on my donation center if you guys would like to donate and receive one. Shipping is included, so I do really, really appreciate it. So yeah, okay, all right. Let's see here. Let's get into this. Okay, so I have 3 questions just to kind of kickstart us off on this little yapping journey we're about to go on. So gather around my little Jude crew. We are going to dive in. Homeschooling future kids. So somebody asked me if homeschooling was a deal breaker. And for me, I don't think it was necessarily a deal breaker for me. I think I would have been okay if it would have been a school that we specifically were very active in and we knew everything that was going on. And not like a public school. Public school, no. But my husband would never want our kids to go to a public school anyway, so I don't have to worry about that like at all. But I will say that a private Catholic school, despite the fact that most Catholic schools are not Catholic anymore, I do know of a couple around me in Chicago that are actually very, very good, and I know of a few that are very, very bad. So I would say as long as we would go together and check it out and make sure that it was the right decision for our child and not because we, don't feel like we can give our children a good education or something. Because I truly do believe that sending a child to school for like 8 hours a day under fluorescent lights in a very small environment around the exact same people for 8 years is not healthy. I truly believe that does not only help the mental health crisis, but it also keeps kids in this adolescence phase where they don't learn how to interact with people who are older than them or younger than them. And yeah, I've seen it time and time again. So my ideal with homeschooling would be implementing the Charlotte Mason method, which is about rich literature learning. So they call them living books. So things like The Lord of the Rings, Narnia, those are living books where there's stories. It's interesting and it feeds your mind while also teaching you about virtue and courage and things of that nature. And it also cultivates a love for beauty and nature in general. That we would pair with a classical education, which is more structured and it focuses more on like the trivium, which is grammar, rhetoric, and logic, which are really important. So they would learn Latin, they would learn about philosophy, and they would read more classical texts. But I don't think there's a curriculum that's a one-size-fits-all situation. I do believe that you kind of have to pick and choose from a bunch of different curriculums and sources. You can't just do it, especially based on the child. Every child is going to be different. Every child is going to have different needs and be interested in different things. And you have to be able to supply them with things that correlate to their learning style, even though people think learning style is like fake, and I don't really know how I feel about that. I don't know. But I do think kids do better hands-on learning for the most part. And so I do think we will pick and choose from a few different curriculums, not just one in general. But the Charlotte Mason method and the classical education method are two really great methods. And I was homeschooled. So, and when you're homeschooled and your parents have done things, you tend to realize that there are certain things that you don't want to do with your kids that your parents did with you. And that's totally fine. That's in all areas of life. That's completely normal. And I think one of the main things is that I needed more structure with certain things. And when it comes to that, I don't mean structure as in like, do this now, do that now. I just needed structure as in like, okay, from this hour to this hour, make sure, or on Mondays and Tuesdays, we do math, science, and art. And on Thursdays, we do, reading, this and that. You know what I mean? Like, I just needed some structure. I feel like my homeschool experience was very much so homeschooling. And I have a lot of friends that were also in that same boat. And so it was a lot harder to learn how to read. It was a lot harder for me to keep up with my peers when I did go to a school for like 3 months, and that was a nightmare. So those types of things really did, I realized that there is importance for letting your kid be a kid. Like, I had a great childhood where like I got to be outside whenever I wanted. I got to be very independent in the things that I did and the things that I got to try. I got to try a whole lot of different things because I did school online or I was homeschooling, so I wasn't conformed to the same schedule as most of these kids, which honestly kind of feels like a prison schedule most of the time. And 30 minutes for lunch is not enough. Just saying. Kids can't just, it's inhumane. Like, kids can't just wolf down lunch and then be expected to not have like a sugar crash or something. Like, it's just, it's really great. Not great. Really not great. So, and on top of that, the things that kids are exposed to in schools and things like that these days, especially since it's government funded schools. So, I mean, granted, there's a different president now and everything seems to be clearing up quite a bit, which is quite nice. I still do not trust other people to teach my children things, because in reality, it really is the parents' responsibility to teach their child not just about the faith, but about the world. And if they leave that up to teachers or other people, the teachers and other people probably aren't going to teach your kid what you would want them to teach them. And this happens time and time again. And putting that responsibility on teachers to basically be a co-parent or a surrogate parent, so to speak, is unfair to the teacher, even though some teachers take that responsibility on themselves, and that's a whole other story. But it's also very confusing for the child, because then the child kind of just learns to believe his teachers, and the first thing that they hear about a certain subject is what they'll believe. That's just common knowledge with kids and their brains and how they soak up information. So I went on this long rant. Point is, I would like structure. We're definitely going to co-school, where my husband's going to be a huge part of that, because he knows a lot more about French and, philosophy and things like that, obviously. So he would kind of take on that aspect, where I would take on like the arts and music and science and potentially math, if I can get good enough at that. And for certain subjects that we feel like we're not good enough for, we would love to do, when they're in high school, like a co-program where they can go to a high school, a Catholic high school, for certain classes, but then it's only like twice a week or 3 times a week or something like that. And then they do the rest at home or something, still keeping that flexibility, but also allowing them to get a high school experience so that they're not culture shocked when they go to college and they don't decide to like get into a whole bunch of bad stuff. Granted, that's also with like how you raise them and what you talk to them about early on and stuff like that. But that's the vibe. That's the vibe. Okay. All right. The second one is, somebody asked if we were able to have a Latin mass for our wedding. And no, but we did try to make it as TLM-y, if that's a word, as possible. So instead of a responsitory psalm, we had a gradual, and we had Gregorian chant. It was ad orientem. It was all in Latin. It was beautiful. And for anyone who doesn't really know the difference between the rubrics of the Novus Ordo and TLM, they probably wouldn't have noticed. So basically in my diocese, in order to have a TLM, for a baptism, wedding, confirmation, first communion, any big event, or the first Sunday of any month, you'd have to get a dispensation from your cardinal. And I'm not going to name who our cardinal is, because most of you probably already know him, but he's not very friendly to the traditional type, like TLMers and people who want to receive on the tongue while kneeling. So because of that, one of my friends actually did send him a letter and ask for a dispensation so that she could have a TLM for her wedding, and he denied it. So we didn't even try. We were like, all right, well, it's not worth the effort. We're just going to make it as traditional as possible, and we're going to make it beautiful. And it was as close to the TLM, aesthetically speaking, as you can probably get. So yeah, I definitely think that, it's kind of a bummer, because like we would have loved it, but also, we don't worship the rubric. It's, it was still it's a valid mass. It was beautiful. It was traditional. I wouldn't have changed anything, to be honest. So yeah, we weren't able to have it, but I'm not upset about it, if that makes sense. And then the last pre-recorded one is, or preemptive question, perhaps, is, how do I talk to my significant other about past porn addictions, basically their past porn addiction. Okay, this is worded really oddly. I'm sorry. So how do I explain this? So I feel like when Max and I kind of had these conversations in our relationship, it was a natural progression we kind of already knew about these things with each other because we were so close as friends. And so we already understood that we had both gone through some stuff leading into the relationship. We already kind of discussed it just as friends, not as dating. But even discussing it just as friends, I mean, he was sad, that I had gone through those things. And, we had some stuff that we could relate to each other on. There were some things that we couldn't relate to each other on, but he always was very loving. He was always very, supportive of where I am now, and that doesn't define me. My past doesn't define me. And maybe I'll do a video about my own pornography situation. I was groomed when I was younger and by a boy that was a little bit older than me. So I don't know. I'm still treading lightly on how much I want to share and stuff like that, just for the sake of my own privacy and as I heal and things like that. But I have started sharing about it a little bit more than I have previously because I've actually healed from it. But when it comes to discussing these things with a person you're dating, it really, I don't want to say it comes down to how comfortable you are with them, because this is a conversation that needs to be had whether you are comfortable or not. I would say be honest, but you don't need to overshare, if that makes sense. You don't need to talk about what you did, what kind of pornography you watched, or those types of, you don't have to give visuals necessarily, unless, they ask, but I don't know why they would ask. That's kind of weird in my opinion. And also make sure that it's the right time to discuss this. It shouldn't just be dumped on them out of nowhere, this whole hullabaloo. It shouldn't be this huge deal, especially now that you are over this addiction. And I would also say, tell them when you quit and about how committed you are to now living a life of chastity. And, I think the most important thing is that you left this life behind you and are actively pursuing chastity. So you want to let them know that. And then also, if they react horribly, break up with them. That's a red flag if they react horribly to your past. I dated a man who, man is a strong word. I dated a guy who, when I told him I had a pornography past, that at that point I had been about, 2 or 3 years over. I think I had healed about for 2 or 3 years. He asked what kind of pornography or what this or what that I was exposed to or that I would watch or whatever. And he said, and I quote, "Well, I guess you're almost pure." Excuse me, sir. I went to confession. I have a clean slate. I don't struggle with it anymore. I haven't struggled with it for almost 2 to 3 years at that point. So I was like, excuse me? Whereas, he also was addicted to it at some point. He also believed that women could not be addicted to pornography. So that was a whole other thing. There were a lot of red flags in that relationship. I don't want to talk about it. Point is that if they react horribly, you should not be dating that person, because they should be able to see your past and separate that from who you are now. Now, I will say, if you're not over it, if you are still struggling with this addiction, or any addiction for that matter, it could be alcohol, nicotine, pornography, masturbation, it could be any of those things, you should not actively be searching for a spouse. You need to get that under control, and you need to heal from that, etc., before you find a spouse. Now, I think there is an exception to an extent for those who are actively trying to get out of this addiction. They're open and honest about that with the person they're dating, and they relay all the information to them, and they tell them da 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 da, and that person has to be okay with it. They can't just be like, "Oh, it's fine. Once we get married, this addiction will be gone." No. You guys have to meet with a priest together. You have to be actively trying to get rid of this addiction. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that lie and say that they're trying to beat this addiction, or, "Oh, I'm healed from it," etc. And then they keep it from their significant other. I also dated somebody like that. And that does not end well either, might I add. So, yeah, that's just, that was a weird sound, but yeah. So I would say, again, be honest, be open, make sure it's the right time. And if they are, condescending, they're judgmental, etc., because you had a pornography addiction, but you no longer have that and you've moved on, etc., that's a red flag. And it might be conducive to showing that they may also have a problem. Potentially. Not saying they do, but judgmental and etc. is just not a good look when somebody's trying to be open and honest with you about their past and something they've overcome. It's like that should be celebrated. That's so beautiful that you are healed from that and you've overcome something that is so difficult for so many people to overcome. You know, that's not something that should be ridiculed. It should be something that's celebrated. You know what I mean? So yeah, it'll be what it'll be. Okay, Jack. Oh, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. As a 20-year-old guy, should I stop trying to date girls until I'm bigger, since I kind of have noodle arms, as you like to say? Aw, I do like to say noodle arms, but I don't mean that in a condescending way. I hope you don't take it that way. I have noodle arms. Just kidding. I'm swole. That was really cringe. Nobody clipped that part and then tagged me in it on Twitter because I'll be dragged through the mud again. Oh, I love things. Okay, anyways, point is, no, I don't think that's a reason for you to not date a girl. I think that these, lifestyle changes and things, like I said, if you have an addiction, that's different when dating. But when you have a goal that you are trying to achieve, whether that's getting more swole or you're trying to, I don't know, you're just trying to work on yourself. Those aren't reasons to not date. I definitely think that dating is, we can always work on ourselves while dating. You don't have to be perfect. There's never going to be a perfect time necessarily. But as long as there's no vice or addiction there that is leading the other person to sin, or it could potentially open that person up to demonic activity once you get married, because that's what happens. So I would say no, you should totally still date. And I don't think it's all about appearances. And I'm going to get raked through the coals here because I do think you do need to be attracted to the person you're dating. However, I do think that everybody's attraction is a little bit different. Somebody who is attractive to my sister is not attractive to me. Obviously, we dated completely different people, but we love them both, somebody who's attractive to my best friend is not attractive to my other friend. So because of that, I would say, don't just go based off of looks, but also personality. And here's the thing. Women are taught that it's love at first sight. And I had that with Max. I will say, I thought he was like the sweetest thing. And I was like, I want him, I'm like, this is the guy. Insert that clip from Spy Kids 3 Game Over, where what's his name? Elijah Wood is like, I'm the guy. And then he gets blown up like 3 seconds later. He was the guy, but he didn't explode. So I would say keep dating. The girl will like you for your personality. And I think when it comes to getting a woman's attention, personality is a lot. Yes, confidence is really important as well, and the way you look, etc., is very important as well. But those things can come, right? Those things, you can tell her you're working on that you're going to the gym, that you have these goals, and goals are really attractive to women. When men have goals and they're actively trying to reach those goals, women are just like, he has goals. He has a motive. What? Yeah, women love that. Like, they eat that up. So I don't think there's any reason for you to not date. So yeah, there is that. Okay. All right. Jack, I hope that helped. I'm sorry if I said noodle arms in a condescending way. It's not, well, maybe I did say it in a condescending. I don't really remember these days what I say and what I don't say sometimes. So yeah. Okay. Joey says 54-day novena for a relationship ? Yes, I think that would be great. I also highly suggest the Saint Anne novena. The Saint Anne novena is specifically to find a spouse, or for those who are struggling. Sorry, my heating pad turned off. For who are struggling in their marriage. So I highly suggest the Saint Anne novena when looking for a spouse. Also, just in general, The 54-day novena, the Rosary Novena, is just phenomenal for anything. And why make it 54 days when it can be 365? I'm funny. Alexander's here. Xander, yes. Shout out to Xander for always supplying us with like the best Catholic stuff. Okay. Hello, Joe. I'm glad you can make it. Okay. All right. Let's focus. Let us focus. Is dating a woman on contraceptives bad? Yes. Let me tell you why. So dating a woman on contraceptives is not good because the contraceptives are messing with her hormones, which are messing with her brain. Women who date men on contraceptives and then get off contraceptives are usually not attracted to the man anymore because what happens is it alters I don't know if pheromones are actually really a thing. My husband said they're not, but I don't really know. It alters the way she views the man because it's messing with her hormones. Now, there's a whole scientific thing about this. You guys can Google it. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a little girl. Share my little opinion. That was really cringy. And so I would highly suggest that I don't want to say break up with her, but like, you have to decide that for yourself. But I will say that it is not the best because, like I said, it alters the hormones. And what ends up happening is the people that she is attracted to changes when she's on it versus when she's off it. So women are more attracted to, and I'm not saying you're effeminate, I'm just saying that this is usually how it goes. Women are usually attracted to more effeminate men when they're on birth control. When they get off birth control, they realize that they're no longer attracted to these men, and that can, obviously causes divorce rates to go up. I'm not saying you're specifically effeminate or anything like that. I'm just saying that women are not attracted to the same men that they would be when they are on versus off birth control. The other thing is that birth control is an abortifacient. So if she is on birth control, not only is she taking a class 1 carcinogen, but she is also, if you guys get married and decide to have a baby, it's an abortifacient. So basically, she would be potentially having an abortion without even knowing it. So that's also very, very difficult to kind of decide and figure whether or not that is the situation or not. It's just a really tricky situation overall, but I would say it is definitely not good to be dating a girl who you know is on contraceptives. And also, contraceptives would literally turn women into witches. I'm not kidding. The women who are on contraceptives are, I don't want to say they're like psychotic, though many of them are, but they're not mentally okay. And there are just too many women who I know who just, it's just crazy. Timothy says with birth control, there's a lot of mood swings. And it's just like, it's just insane. It truly is insane. So I would highly suggest that you evaluate the relationship. You talk to her about it, those types of things. And yeah, Clay says, I know a few women who went on it and got off it, and it horrifically, permanently screwed with their hormones. Yeah, it also can cause infertility on top of cancer, on top of hair loss, on top of skin problems, on top of... oh my gosh, I'm missing one. There's another one in there somewhere. But yeah, there's a reason why the information pamphlet that comes in birth control is the size of a blanket. Because it's not good for you. It's not good for you. So... make your own decision on that, but the Catholic Church is also, obviously against contraceptives, so you can't be on contraceptives. I think there's like one thing for health, but even then you can't be sexually active, and yeah, so evaluate, figure it out, but that is my 2 cents. You're very welcome, Jack. I'm glad I could help. Okay, Mike says, be careful when looking into attending a TLM, as there are churches who have Catholic in their name but who may not be in full communion with Rome, such as the SSP. I'm going to assume you meant to say SSPX chapels. I discovered this yesterday. Yeah. So, I mean, you just have to look for FSSP or whatever. Now, there is this whole thing. I don't want to get into the whole SSPX debate. You guys always ask me about it, and I'm exhausted about it already. I'm like, y'all, obviously they are in material schism. It's, yes, technically they have valid sacraments, but you can't go to confession with them or something? They're not valid. There's this whole thing. Here's my take, right? My take is that most, not all, most SSPXers are borderline sedevacantists, right? And sedevacantists are just glorified Protestants, in my opinion. No, not my opinion. That is actually what they are. So for me, I don't think that it's ideal if, like, let's say the traditional Latin Mass was banned tomorrow, like completely, just out of nowhere. Obedience is more important than the rubric of the Mass, because like I said, we don't worship the rubric of the Mass. The Novus Ordo is still valid. Does it suck if it's completely, annihilated tomorrow? Yes, it would. I'd be very, very upset. But obedience is more important to God than our personal preference. And if it was completely banned, I would still have obedience to Rome. I wouldn't jump overboard, and so many people do. And it's really unfortunate, but so many people do that. And they land themselves in sedevacantist territory, of course. Now, am I saying that that is the situation for everyone? No, but my husband and I, we went to a traditional Latin Mass out in Washington State. And I don't remember where it is, otherwise I'd tell you guys because it was great. But we went there. It was awesome. People were great. And then we went to this little downtown area, which was really, really sweet. And we saw another traditional Latin Mass parish. And we were like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. There's so many here. And there's only like 2. But like 2 to us is like great. So we go to that traditional Latin Mass parish. We walk in because the doors are open. The first thing we see are like this list of just rules, how women have to have a certain neckline, they have to have a certain hemline, they have to have a certain arm length line, they have to wear a veil. No, it's not optional. Have to wear a veil if you're going to be in the church in front of the tabernacle, which, look, I am all for veiling. I am all for it, but it seemed like they were worshiping these traditional aspects of the faith as opposed to God. It felt very icky, and we did not feel welcome. We didn't feel like it was a very welcoming, inviting place. And of course, some places go a little bit overboard with that, where it's like, wear whatever you want, etc. There is virtue in the middle. But to walk into that church and be properly dressed, might I add, and be properly, modestly dressed, and feel like I'm not covered enough was icky. That felt very icky to me. So it's like, if you didn't veil, you couldn't attend Mass, basically. Like, that's kind of the vibe that we got. So it was just, it was very icky. Yeah. Was this Washington State Church or town with 2 TLM churches near Seattle or near Vancouver, Washington by any chance? I don't think so. I think it was by, I don't know where it is. Toyota maybe? I think it was maybe by Toyota. Not the car, obviously, the town. I don't know. But it just felt very icky to me, and I did not like it. And that is the vibe that I have gotten from so many SSPX people. Now, are all of them like that? No, I'm not trying to do a one-size-fits-all situation here. There's always going to be nuance. But for the most part, whenever I talk to SSPX people, whenever I've engaged with the groups of SSPX people, whenever I've gone to an SSPX church without knowing it or anything, it's always this very holier than thou, you can't be a part of our club type of thing. And if you don't meet our requirements, you're not Catholic. And it's just, yeah. I'm going to have some tea now. I've earned this. I've earned my peppermint tea. Delicious. So yummy. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, I don't know if that answered the question. I'm sorry. I'm just a little gabby over here. Okay. There are alternative therapies for endometriosis that have been proven to be more effective. Dietary changes have a better impact on endo than birth control does. PubMed has a lot of info on it. True. And I'm currently seeing a NAPRO doctor for potential endometriosis, but nothing's been suggested yet, and we're doing the diet first because diet is 70% of the problem as opposed to, just automatically going into birth control or surgery. Plus birth control, if you weigh up the facts versus like the cons versus the pros versus the cons are significantly higher than the pros. So, and honestly, I don't think there's any pros to taking birth control. So there is that. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Any suggestions on difficult relationships? Both of us are TLM Catholic. We are struggling very much. So you got to be more specific because I don't know what you mean by, difficult relationships. That's the hard part sometimes is that I get very vague questions and I don't know. I mean, I genuinely want to help. I need a little more info. So shoot me a little more info. And let's see here. How are you preparing for Lent? So some things that I do for Lent, obviously taking into account fasting and, prayers and devotionals and everything like that. I still have to get into my devotionals, but Blessed Is She does have a devotional, which you guys can click on the link in my link tree if you guys are on Instagram, but they have a great Lenten devotional that I'm going to get, and you guys can use my promo code Amber10 for a discount on that if you would like. I'm going to get one myself though. I mean, I know usually sometimes, when you do these types of things, they send it to you, but I also like supporting the people sometimes and stuff. And, when I can at least give them something. So they're great. But yeah, so I would highly suggest the Blessed Is She Lenten devotional. That is really great. They also have one for kids, which is good as well. I haven't seen if they have one for men yet, but there are a lot of Lenten devotionals out there for guys. I know that a lot of people are doing like the Fiat 90, the Exodus 90, which is really great. I think that's phenomenal. I have had just really bad experiences with both because at one time they didn't have Fiat 90. They only had Exodus 90, so I tried following that, but I'm a woman, and so that caused some hormonal imbalances and certain things. So now for myself, I kind of do my own Fiat 90 where I just I reevaluate my life, and instead of following a rubric, I look at my personal life. I see what areas I'm struggling in, what areas I need to do better in. I make a list, and then I kind of write out a plan of how I'm going to work on those things or incorporate certain things to help with that. So yeah, I definitely think that if you are a fan of Fiat 90 or Exodus 90, that's great. I personally just haven't had a good relationship with it. And my husband tried doing Exodus 90, but for him it was too easy. So now we kind of just do our own thing. So yeah, it's great. Hang on. Mm-hmm. We love a good tea moment. Also, you guys can get these mugs. Or wait, no. Can you guys get these mugs? You guys can also get these mugs on my donation center if you would like. On the back it says The Religious Hippie. On the front it's a little photo of me holding a Bible. Who doesn't want one of these? It's kind of one of my favorite mugs, not gonna lie. Anyways, distractions. Okay. There we go. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, guys, we got more information. By difficult, I mean fights. He's been very unstable, threatening violence on himself, etc., emotional abuse, and some verbal abuse. We are both in separate therapy. Ooh, girl. No. Do not continue that relationship. Obviously, there's going to be certain things I don't know about, etc., but when there's abuse involved, that's not going to go away when you get married. That's not just going to dissipate. In situations like this, You have to be able to work on yourself, and he's going to have to be able to work on himself outside of a relationship. If he's threatening violence, if he's doing this, if he's doing that, like, that is such an immature thing to do. And I know it can be difficult because there's emotions, wrapped up in that and everything. But from personal experience, as someone who was actually like physically abused, mentally abused, and it really messed me up for a very long time, run, get out while you can. Seriously, that is not a good relationship. And people are like, oh, but it can get better, or this or that or whatever. It doesn't get better. If it was going to get better, he would change his behavior. But this seems, just from what you sound like you're saying, this seems like it's been a reoccurring thing. Liza says, I agree. I've been in a mental and emotional abusive marriage and stayed for 4 years hoping it would resolve, but it didn't. It never changed. And that's the problem. You don't want to, I'm not saying this is you specifically, but some people subconsciously have a hero complex where they think that they can help the person. Oh, I can change him, that type of thing. That is not the right mindset when it comes to dating. We should be dating people who we want to marry one day, who are virtuous, who are loving, who are kind, who are gentle. My husband solely was the person who helped me realize that not all men are liars and abusive, etc. Because that had really been all I was exposed to. That people don't keep their promises. Men aren't supposed to protect women's purity. That, women are the weaker sex. So that's just the way things are. And, that's difficult. And I know he says he wants to change. It's hard not to offer him mercy and give him time. You can give him mercy. Absolutely. But at arm's distance, he needs to prove himself worthy of you. And vice versa, if that was the case, if it was you who had the problem, right? You don't have to stay in a relationship just because you want to give him mercy and time. And to be honest, if he wants to get better, again, it would be actions, not words. And people who are like that, unfortunately, drag people along consistently without any change, constantly promising, oh, I'm going to change. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this. They never do. From my experience, from Liza's experience. And you get stuck in this very toxic cycle. And when it comes to these type of abusive relationships, if you do not feel safe, make sure that somebody else knows about this. Your priest, your best friend, your family. I don't know how old you are. But if you don't feel safe, I'm not saying getting a restraining order is necessary, but sometimes it is. I've had to do that before. And it's just really important. Liza makes a good point here. Sometimes they say they want to change and then you stay and then they realize they can control you emotionally and their behavior won't change. Why change when they know you won't leave? And that's a really good point. So I'm really sorry you're going through this because I don't want my advice to come off as like brash or, harm. I understand exactly what you're going through. I have been in very bad situations with a guy. And it's just very, very hard because as women, we are nurturers. We want to love. We want to give mercy. That's our side. But the men need to be worthy of that. And you can still give him mercy. You can still pray for him. You can still love him at a distance and out of a relationship. Because at the end of the day, you guys are not married, right? You are not married to him. You can leave. You can find someone who treats you better, who is a good man of Christ, who, exemplifies Saint Joseph. And it's very, very important that, okay, I'm glad your therapist knows, but yeah, you don't feel safe, and that is the biggest red flag. And what do we do when we date? We date to marry. And so if there is no intention, you're scared of this person, you have no intention of marrying them, you have to cut that off. And sometimes that looks like, when I broke it off with my abuser, I I just texted him and I said, this isn't going to work. And he's like, well, or maybe I called him. I don't remember. But I just remember him saying, well, I was going to break up with you anyways. Expletive, blah, 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 blah. And then I hope you can be mature about this. And I was just like, yep. And then I hung up. And after that, I didn't block him because he didn't try to reach out to me or anything like that. But then he did reach out to me on my birthday, which I thought was so odd. And at that point, my husband and I were engaged. So I just blocked him. I was like, this is weird. So, yeah, just hang in there. I'm glad your therapist knows. Break it off as soon as you can, because those relationships don't go anywhere good. And at the end of the day, abusive relationships are not godly relationships, you know? That's not how St. Joseph would treat Our Lady. And that is not how, you know, man is supposed to treat woman, right? They're supposed to be protective. Liza says the hardest thing are often the best things for us. The Lord does not want his children to suffer. Those kinds of relationships are not from the Lord. Facts. Also, I keep calling you Liza. I feel like that's your name. I'm sorry if it's not. So yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. What kind of coffee making setup do y'all use? I don't know. My husband does the coffee stuff. I am learning to do the coffee stuff, but I know he has a Gaggia. Don't know what type. It's silver. I'm a woman. I don't know these things. And yeah, that's all I know. So I hope that helps. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm glad, Liza. I'm glad I got that right at least. Because I usually butcher names on here. Just ask anyone. For real. Dan says, love your wife as God loved the church. So true. So true. All right. I'm going to take one more question and then we are going to hop off because I have the St. Jude prayer group. Actually, while you guys send in your questions, I'm sorry I can't get to all of them. I truly would love to. I love talking to you guys. This is so fun. But alas, I am one person. If there were 5 of me, I actually wouldn't get anything done. I would think like, oh, I'd be more productive. No. Anyways, the St. Jude prayer group is this prayer group that meets online. It's virtual. It's on Zoom that I have. And 2 years ago, I had it. It was a huge hit. There's a group chat. We're all really, really close and it's completely free. And the last couple weeks, I have brought it back officially. So if you guys are interested in joining the prayer group, we pray the rosary and you guys are involved. One person will lead one part of the decade and then the other person responds to it. It's really, really cool. And then afterwards we get to have a little like chit chat time, which is a lot of fun as well. So if you guys want to sign up for that, you can on my website. You guys can go to thereligioushippie.com and it's underneath the events tab. There's information on there. It's completely free, like I said, but in order to get the link and everything, you do have to go through SimpleTix to get the link. That just helps me keep track of who's going to be in the group, etc. But it's on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time, and it's just a great way for us to kind of connect and pray for each other, and it's just, the community is just really, really great. So highly suggest if you're interested in that, you guys can check it out. So yeah, definitely do that. Okay, so let us see here. Also, people sometimes think I'm really mean and I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be. I get passionate. I'm passionate, you guys. I worry about you guys and I worry about myself too. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Because it's not, it's not easy being out there in the world. I will pray for you, Jobin. Not a problem. Not a problem. So yes. Okay. Back. Okay. Last question, because this one might be a little bit long. Back to the subject of motherhood. How should Catholic parents discipline their children? How strict should they be given the spiritual dangers children are exposed to in the modern world? I can only base this off my own childhood. This really just depends. I think it depends on your child in the sense of they're going to be exposed to things. And you as the parent have to be able to tiptoe the line of giving them enough introduction to those things where it's like they know they exist and they're not going to be culture shocked by them, but also give them the groundwork with Catholicism and what the church teaches, etc., and why, in order for them to realize that it is bad. Kids need a moral compass, and the church gives them that moral compass. So if they do not have the church, and if the parents are not teaching the children what they believe and why, you should be able to answer your child's questions on the faith. And if you can't answer, you should be able to tell them like, hey, not sure about that, but let me get back to you. Because children are naturally curious. They want to know about these things. And the first person who tells them about abortion or contraceptives or sex or any of that is the person they're going to believe. And oftentimes, because kids are in schools these days, etc., keeping them in a bubble is actually doing more harm than good, because they're still going to be exposed to this stuff through their peers. And they have to feel comfortable enough to come to their parent if they see something that is inappropriate or that somebody's doing something that's inappropriate. They should feel comfortable enough to go to their parent and tell them what's going on. And I think that really does come down to being able to teach your children about the morals that we believe as Catholics, of course, like why contraceptives are bad. That raising them with a pro-life view from a very young age, because children get it. They are very, very logical. Like, children understand that that is a baby in the womb. Like, what else could it possibly be? A panda? Like, no. I do love pandas, though, I'm going to be honest. Clay calling me out for being mean. I am not mean. It's all right, guys. Don't bully Clay. He's fine. He's fine. He's okay. But the point is that there is a line. And for me personally, phones are one of those lines. Do not give your child a phone. Like, don't give your kids phones unless they're one of our friends, they have like Gab phones or something where they can't like access the internet, and there's emails that are sent to the parent if they feel like they're texting someone they shouldn't be. They have access to like all their messages, etc. But at that point, it's like, why even give them a phone? It's like, give them a flip phone, give them a burner phone maybe or something. But even then, when I was a kid, I found ways around that. I still was able to, I've talked about this once before, but when I was little, I was on a server for Pixie Hollow, which was like this Disney game and stuff, and it was like Club Penguin in a way. And this one guy, he got my number because I was like, and my sister and I were sharing a phone at the time. So, she had a flip phone, and we shared that flip phone. So she got it for a certain part of the day. I got it for the rest of the day. And needless to say, I was a dumb little child, and I gave this person our address. It did not end well. Lots of police stuff, lots of things. Yeah. So, it's great. It's great. So, yeah, I definitely think that kids can still get into a lot of trouble, and that's where the trust comes in. Because if you are a dictator, if you are constantly trying to control what they do and not explain to them why it's bad, but just be authoritarian, they're going to find sneaky ways around you. They are going to become very sneaky children. And I was a sneaky child. There were so many things that I did that my parents had no idea about, that my sister had no idea about, that, most people had no idea about. And I was a very secretive child. I knew how to delete emails. I knew how to delete text messages because I was always getting in trouble for this, that, and the other thing. So for me, I didn't stop doing those things. I just found ways around it where I didn't get in trouble. It's not good. It's not great. And especially in our technology era these days, kids don't even have a childhood anymore. So I really do think that it starts with the phones. I don't even know if this is answering the question anymore. I'm just rambling at this point. I do think it really starts with the phones. Do not give your kids phones. I got a phone way too early. My husband got a phone way too early. Smartphones, might I add. And it really did cause my teenage years to spiral. For real, because I compared myself to celebrities and, I got body dysmorphia, eating disorders, self-harm, etc. It just was not good. And most kids, unfortunately, are exposed to those things. And there's a book. It's called, there's this book. Oh my gosh. I just got it and it's really, really good. I actually highly suggest you guys all get it. It's called, let me see. I just bought, why do I have to sign into my account? I don't even know what my password is anymore. Maybe that's it. All right. It's sending me a code to my phone. I'm sorry. I just can't remember. It's called I think it's called The Anxious Generation, but I want to make sure that I get it right. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Where is the book? There it is. The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewriting of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. That book, highly suggest it. It's by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. Don't know what I'm saying. But that book is really, really good. And I think if you are a parent or you want to become a parent, or even if you are a person who's struggling with anxiety and mental health, you need to read this book because it explains so much about how our phones impact us. It has the data. It gives you the charts. It shows you how the mental illness epidemic has been, curated over a certain amount of time in different parts of the world even, but especially in America. And specifically what, the impact on boys versus girls when it comes to mental health issues and things like that. So it's pronounced height. Thank you, Clay. Appreciate that. So yeah, I highly suggest that book. It's just, it's crazy. You were secretive out of guilt or because of fear of punishment? Both. But mainly I think the fear of punishment was the main thing. Because even if I told the truth or I said that something was going on, I felt like I would be blamed. So I hid a lot of stuff just because I didn't want to get in trouble. And in retrospect, not necessarily the case, but as a little kid, I didn't really understand these things. So it was difficult. The title of that book, McGuire, is The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. You could probably just type in The Anxious Generation and it'll pop up. But that's a really, really great book if you guys are struggling with that. So with that being said, I'm sorry. I would absolutely love to take more of your guys' questions, but I do have to hop off and start prepping for the St. Jude prayer group. Again, if you guys want to check that out, it is free. You guys can go to my website, thereligioushippie.com. Underneath the events tab, you'll see the St. Jude prayer group, and it'll have information, how to sign up, etc. With all that being said, guys, I really appreciate you guys hopping on here and hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. So God bless, always praying for you guys, and don't forget that the little chaplets are on my donation center if you'd like to help support this ministry. Christ Tears chaplets are genuinely one of my favorites. So with all that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and maybe I'll see you guys tonight at the St. Jude prayer group. Bye guys.